podcast and not a Patreon,
I
from
think
what we
so.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome to another episode of Command Control Power. We have just a one-on-one show here with me and Jerry. Jerry,
Woo!
yeah, good to see you there with a new background.
New background, new
Very nice.
show.
New
Actually,
show.
I changed the backgrounds. Just it helps me keep track when I'm doing
It's a good point. Yeah.
some
Editing and
clerical work in the background. Yes, sir.
clerical work. Nice. Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, we can talk about a few different things here. One thing I was thinking of bringing up was just some of the recent iOS changes, iOS 18, not that recent, obviously, anymore, but I still deal with it with clients because when I'm guiding them on something, it's two different worlds now. Like just something as simple as the settings app, for example, right? You're either saying, okay, go to settings and look for passwords. Well, okay, then look for the passwords app, leave settings and look for the passwords app, right? Or, in settings, okay, tap on your name, tap on iCloud. Do you see, show all? No. Okay. Do you see all? Okay. It's just little changes in there that I find frustrating. Also, like I get that Apple moved the various settings for individual apps to like the apps section of settings. So it's no longer one massive scrolling list all the way to the bottom. But I think it would make more sense to have the native apps on the first screen. Like those are the ones I'm usually walking people through finding. And so I'm like, go to messages. Okay, it's not there. Go to apps and then scroll to messages. I have dozens and dozens and dozens of apps on my iPhone. For me, that's a long scroll. Now I'm telling people just search. So we're at this system settings of Ventura when we started to just have to search for every setting. For me, I'm finding that's happening now with the iPhone, mostly when I'm guiding clients, but some of it seems arbitrary is my main point. And, I can learn to, I can learn to get along with these changes, but I don't know. Have those caused those kinds of issues for you at all, Jerry?
Well, as you were talking, it would be really nice if we could even, and I don't think we'll ever see it, like even like a customizable hot list where you could make like almost like a little dashboard and you could add
Yeah.
things that you frequently would go to. Yeah, but you know, hands down, Mac or iOS, I'm doing a search with clients. I'm
Yeah.
never asking them to scroll, and for the most part, I won't even approach a remote session unless unless I'm using Splashtop to get on their phone, or
Yeah.
they've upgraded to Sequoia and I could see the phone, because it's next to impossible. You're dealing with people, if it's residential work, who are not experienced at all in working in the settings app, and it's diminishing returns, unless, like you said, Joe, you had 4 iPhones on your desk. One's like
Yeah.
the Ventura version, or not, excuse me, not the
Yeah.
Ventura version, but iOS 14,
Right.
iOS, yeah. And then you might
Yep.
be able to get there with them for the win, but it's a colossal waste of time. And so,
I know.
yeah,
And
it's frustrating.
it's like, why, I don't know, why did they make these changes? I guess, is it getting better? Like, should to me, it opens up this question overall about how, like, within the nature of technology is these changes happen all the time. There's incremental changes that happen every 0.01 update or 0.1 update, and then there's the changes that happen with the major version updates. But it's all changing all the time, whether it's an app or native first party software. And yes, they're introducing new features. Yes, there are benefits. I'm actually looking forward to the Apple Intelligence features that are now the second round of beta.
Mhm.
It's a lot of it. Like I'm not a luddite in that sense, but what I wish for is like more stability in just the basic functionality of the device. Like when something works, like I guess, I mean, I feel like I'm just saying things that, the previous generation said about, the previous generation of tech. It's like, don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? It's like, why are they keep tweaking the location of different settings or, changing things in these subtle ways? But also not just the changes for change's sake, but also the fact that by changing something, sometimes things break, and then it's frustrating just to like use the basic everyday functionality. I can't think of any examples that come to mind other than just
Mhm.
my AirPods do weird things sometimes,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's like, something was playing like a podcast, a notification came in, and you get that weird volume shift sometimes that happen to
Mhm.
you where like suddenly it's like
Yeah.
playing, it's like the notification's really loud or something. And then like the podcast doesn't resume playing. And it's like, oh, okay, so it's like it's supposed to be helping you by announcing it in your ear, and then it goes back to what it was doing. But instead, I'm like, now I'm gonna fish my phone out or find the stem of my AirPod. I mean, these are not big deals, but it's just fine. I find that it's frustrating when the nature of technology is change. It's always changing, and we get very like short periods of time where everything works and it's stable, and then until like, okay, round, next round of betas coming out, and here we
Right.
go again, right?
Well, I think it even goes beyond, like, people use as an excuse, oh, well, every year they have to come out with new stuff. And when they make their
Right,
keynote, they want to say, like, we've got 100 new features or whatever. They probably don't
right,
count them anymore. But I think it's beyond that. I think it has to do with our expectations are so much higher for what these devices can do. And they're so nuanced and they're so niche, some of
yeah,
the requests, that Apple's like, yeah, we could do that. And so they build another layer of, settings, another level down, or another,
yeah,
or multiple levels down to achieve these things. So it's all achievable. But, I just met the other day with a gentleman. He's like 91 years old. He's macular degeneration. And, we're just trying to help the contrast. And there's so many different nested places you could go to
yeah,
increase those settings. And so it's less, nothing is straightforward anymore. And there's third party apps that can do this. And so there's definitely different ways and different solutions. And I'm not sure I'm making any sense here, but I think that we just expect so much more from these devices. So it's
yeah,
it's beyond Apple just trying to build in new features. It's we're to blame because we're reaching out to Apple either internally, or people are writing to Apple and they're like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. And
yeah,
then of course everything is done with Teams,
yeah,
right? And so your teams don't maybe coalesce
yeah,
till maybe you know months before the beta releases. And then it's, how do you take the glue and stick all this stuff together?
right,
So I'm not making excuses for Apple. I just think that
yeah.
it's not going to get better. I think it's only going to get worse.
No, it's exactly, it is an industry wide thing because like you're describing, I
Mhm.
mean, maybe Android releases a feature and Apple feels like they have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly they and some of it is the keynote thing you mentioned. It's not all that, like you said, and some of it is also the shareholders that Apple is beholden to get on get on the bus of this AI revolution that's happening.
Hmm.
And, if Apple doesn't say the word AI 6 times in a keynote, in the next 6 months, then, the stock is going to tank or whatever the case may be. So they do have to do that. And of course, I'm glad they are. I mean, I'm glad a lot of the way they're implementing it. Of course, it's the Apple way. It's with privacy in mind, and it's native on device, and their processors can handle it really well and all that. But, so these are good things, but like they're compelled to do some of this by the larger industry and by the stockholders. Um, I just wish, I mean, again, I don't know if it's possible, but like, can't we just have certain things be more stable over a longer period of time? Like, why do we have to go through this cycle? I guess if you, I don't know, would you say if you wait to the point one of the new iOS, then it should be stable until, through the end of that cycle until the next version comes out, and you wait for the point one of that, and maybe things will be a little bit more refined, if you do wait. Because I wait on the Mac, I don't wait on the iPhone. Maybe that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I in one breath you were talking about stability, and I didn't really address that. But in the other side of the talking point that you were bringing up, I think you're also talking about how nuanced everything is.
Yeah,
So
well, like
I
you
don't
said, with
think,
this different screens for the same feature or different ways of
yeah.
achieving the same goal.
So,
Yeah.
so I just don't even think those types of things are going to smooth out. They're just,
Hmm.
everything's going to just be more granular. But in terms of interoperability and the handoff that's happening with the AirPods, going from the phone, you're
Yeah.
on the phone and then you go back to YouTube, and there might be some malfeasance there. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
for the most part, always dazzled by the fact that, you know, I could pick up the iPhone and here we are having a conversation, and I could start doing something there, and it automatically knows that I'm working on the iPhone now. That
Yeah.
amazes me, you know.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I think AirPods are pretty smooth.
Yeah, yeah. No,
But
no major complaints. I just use them all day long, so maybe, maybe I'm seeing more of those types of like weird little issues. And again, it's a new, like, it's an early iOS release, and so I probably have to wait a month or two until all those little tiny bugs are worked out. I don't know. I mean, I think I also feel like I used to be able to be more of an expert in, Mac and iPhone. And like
mhm.
if somebody, if I'm out somewhere talking to friends and they say, "Oh, how do I do such and such?" It's like I'm the expert. I should be able to provide an answer. I would hope personally, and they may expect it. And I'm finding more and more like, I don't know. I think it's settings and then accessibility, or maybe it's general, or just search for whatever. And and then like you're describing, there might be two different ways of addressing the same thing. And if you do it here, and then I don't know, AirPods with the transparency and conversation boost and different features. There's just so many little screens, and it's just
Mhm.
impossible to be an expert like I think it once was more possible to be more of an expert with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, for
But
sure. Yeah. We're suffering there right with you, Joe.
yeah,
Yeah, we're
I
feeling your pain.
I read an article that was supposed to address this. Is this Bloomberg article a couple weeks ago? It said Apple's moving away from its annual product upgrade cycle. And I thought, wow, this is going to be some big news drop, that they're not going to release an iPhone every year, or they're not going to release a new Mac OS every year. I read the article. I really couldn't take away. It was just kind of hemming and hawing about all this same stuff we've been talking about. You know, I don't need them to release a new Mac OS every year. Like, do you feel like, I mean, I know you install it at the early days and all, and there are usually some nice new features, but will we ever get to the point where like we don't really need a brand new Mac OS version that is going to fundamentally change different features under the hood, or every year? Like, and same question about iOS. iOS, like, do we need a new iOS every year? If we get a new iPhone hardware every year, do we need a new major iOS version? I mean, who does that benefit?
You sound a little complaining now.
I guess I am. I guess I am. Well, it's a philosophical thing. I haven't quite been able to put my finger on it over the years, but I just want more stability and less like arbitrary change. That said, I want to give Apple credit because the fact that they could release the Vision Pro with a brand new like OS, native, with full integration, in terms of like handoff and continuity and things like that, without having to like invent all those features. They've already invented continuity and handoff, and they've already standardized their processor architecture across their different platforms so that they can port code between them. They've already created these even like development frameworks to be able to take some of the code you're using to develop an app on one platform and use it. You can run an iPad app on a Vision Pro or a Mac, or so there's a
Mhm.
lot of portability and cross-platform compatibility in the Apple ecosystem that demonstrates just how much they've done with the foundational layer of all this stuff. So I am very impressed with that, but it's just that these new features that come out and the little tweaks they make to existing features always seem to just make things feel slightly less stable, to the point where I'm a little frustrated with my device half the time, until we get to that stability again.
What if all the listeners contributed in Sam and I, and we get you one of those phones with the big buttons? Would that be better for you?
Well, I looked this up actually. I should have known this, where a client, have you had this question before about, what to do with like the, like somebody who wants a big button like iPhone, basically, like, there's cognitive decline, there's that kind of thing. Um, and what do you tell them, right? What's the kind of solution for like the big button, iPhone? There's solutions for that built in.
No, no. Tell
Yeah.
me about that.
Well, I'm trying to search my notes
There's
right
an app
now.
for that.
So
The other
this is
thing,
the
what
yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't
I got
realize
it,
you
but
had
go
it so
ahead.
quickly. Go ahead.
So this is the cognitive accessibility features. Okay. So this is under the I should have known this, because the client asked and I was like, well, we could zoom the whole screen in, but that doesn't really, like, I started to respond in a totally inaccurate way before I actually
Right.
looked into it. I didn't send the response, thankfully, but I was like, let me actually research this first before I tell them from authority, like, that this can't be done. So, this is the request. Hi, would it be possible to hire you guys for my ex-husband, who we've now put in memory care? I know there are ways to make his main screen on his iPhone extremely accessible with just a few large buttons, like for messages, mail, and phone or something. Do you know anything about doing elder accessibility like that, and could you help? Very good request. In fact, she even indicated what some of these features were that I should have known. And I was thinking, how would I do that? I would change the screen zoom to make everything really big. I'd change the
Hmm.
home screen to just have just the icons in it that I want and move everything to another screen. No, there's actually a built-in method of doing this. So Apple has this great, article, of course, about how to get started with accessibility features on iPhone. So, I mean, we all know about accessibility features, but this is the
Sure.
getting started for these. They take you through, vision, mobility, et cetera, hearing, speech, and then you get to cognitive. And if you go, so cognitive is one of these more fundamental kind of changes. The other ones we know about from some things we might like to do, like to be able
Hmm.
to, increase the text size or bold or whatever. But this is a more like fundamental change. So the cognitive accessibility features, then they link to a page all about this, where you can keep the iPhone simple, as they put it. And so you can basically, you know, list, like, you can allow only certain apps, and you can have, like, just those apps be on the main screen. So I'm not talking about just zooming in like your existing home screen. It's a new version of the home screen that has like very large buttons with white background with the icon, and very large icon, and then large text below it what the thing is. So, like, for example, the phone app is labeled calls, camera app, camera, photos. So those are the examples they give. Or instead of that button view, you can have a list of apps that is scrollable. So it's, again, very simple. It's just a list of whatever apps you want them to have, and it has the icon and the name of the app, and it's like on a white background. So it's very easy to read as well. Um, in addition, different apps have assistive access for that specific app as well. So, for example, like the camera app has a button that just says take photo, and there's another button that says back. So it's like, it could not be
Mm.
more, simpler. I mean, some of these are like appealing to me for all the complaints I was just making. It's like, let's go back to the easy early days where we take out all these extra features that trip people up. Oh, how did I get this? I'm locked into some screen that no one's ever seen before, and I can't understand what they're seeing on the phone. Well, if we have implemented this accessibility feature, this cognitive accessibility feature up front, they basically can't get into these edge case, corner case, weird scenarios where they're kind of stuck and you don't know how to help them. It's very simplified. So basically, the point here is to let people know that this is out there, that cognitive accessibility features can be really powerful for, someone with this kind of disability.
And do you know when that was actually implemented? This new GUI, let's call it. You know.
Yeah. So what we said in this case was, they were in Manhattan, so we would need to go there. I said, we were happy to go there and do this. Although I said someone will need to be there who is what Apple calls, let me see what they, sorry, what they actually called it. Bu- 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 oh man, sorry for the delay, Jerry, with the edit here. Um,
All our
they call it a
YouTube
trusted,
listeners
yeah, and our
will
YouTube
enjoy this.
listeners. So Apple calls it a trusted supporter. So this is like a family member or caregiver. So I said to this client, Apple recommends that you have it what's called a trusted supporter, who's like a family member. I'm implying like you might want to be that person, or is there someone there that can help your ex-husband to be that trusted supporter, who would be involved in the initial setup, who can then help turn these features off, et cetera, like navigate how
Hmm.
how this works. Also, they probably should have familiarity with it because it's going to look different than their own iPhone, and so they should
Hmm.
know how this works. So if
Sure.
you want to have someone go there, like, we could guide you through doing this remotely rather than, so
Hmm.
I'm not sure where it left off. I also said, here's Apple's info. Maybe you can just dive right in because it's pretty straightforward once you know where to look, which is again, the point of bringing awareness to this on the show is that, these features are out there. So yeah, cognitive accessibility.
Right. Is this new to the most recent iOS, or was this in the previous iteration?
So this is, let me go back and see if there's a link here. I think it was iOS 17. So Apple's user guide shows this in iOS 17 and iOS 18. So
Right.
those are the only two versions I think that support this
So
type of
we should have
accessibility
known this, Joe.
since last year. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Where's
Yeah.
Sam? Yeah, we'll blame it on Sam because Sam's
Yeah,
Mr.
Sam,
Apple,
he's the one we look to on this. Exactly.
and he should have told us about this on a show
That's right.
because
That's
he
right.
probably trained people on this.
Yes, yes.
So we'll
Yeah,
blame
well,
him.
right. I mean, I don't know. Was this on the test? I don't remember this on the test. So that's my
No, it wasn't
defense
on the
here.
test.
Okay.
We'll have a new segment called "Blame the Trainer."
Right. Exactly.
Instead of
Yeah, how
train
about
the trainer, blame the
blame the
trainer.
trainer? There you go. I
Yeah,
love it. Yeah.
Sam.
Nice.
All right, we'll have to roast him next time we have him on
That's right. I'm sure we will.
if he decides to join us sometime soon.
Right. So
If he's
that
traveling the world, probably.
yeah, yeah,
No
if he
doubt.
gets back safely on plan, exactly.
Yeah. He's
Yeah, what
doing
else?
some extra campaigning, and we won't say for what side, but
Not for what side? Yeah, exactly.
as we record this, as you watch this, of course, we're going to have a new president.
Oh, we hope so.
Unless
Yeah.
there's a complete insurrection that we've
Yeah.
pre-taped and we don't really know about, and you may be watching this from a bunker somewhere.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I hope
and
it
it may be
doesn't come to
in
that.
Canada. Maybe in
Yeah.
Canada, you might be watching this.
Right.
If,
You can get
if in
the
fact,
show anywhere.
yeah,
So
if in fact the internet is still up,
right. That's the other
yeah,
question. Yeah.
yeah, who
Yeah.
knows?
If you want to suppress dissent, I mean, you stop people from being able to communicate with each other. So
Right.
you know, yeah, get your Starlings tested, everybody out there,
I'm a little angry. Can I?
Yeah,
Do you have
talk to
more
me.
to
Yeah, I
say
want to hear
about
it. No, that was it.
about the
That was it.
nanophone that you're
No,
working
no,
on?
please.
All right. But that'll be actually interesting for you to share a follow-up, on another public show, if in fact you get to interact, or even if you
Yeah.
just do it remotely. And,
I'm
I would
curious
love
too
to.
if anybody,
Mm.
if anybody else has had experience with that specifically, like setting this up. What's been the experience? Because I haven't. So yeah,
Yeah.
putting
We'll
it out
bring
there.
you on for a segment.
Yeah, sounds
If
good.
you don't
Yeah,
want to be on for
exactly.
the whole show, you could
Yeah,
be on
yeah,
for a segment.
yeah. Send us your recording, or send us an email, and we'll invite you on to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about
We
that.
could drop it in. Yeah. If they sent the recording.
Yep.
Mm.
So what's making you angry, Jerry, these
I'm a little
days?
angry.
Okay.
Well, and I don't know if this has, and I discussed this with you privately, but I'm
Yeah,
just going to bring it up on the show. So I don't know if the
please.
policies have changed recently, but most recently, I ordered 2 different electronic devices from Amazon. The
Okay.
first one being AirPods Pro, and the other one was I was trying out a camera for my computer here,
Mm-hmm.
because right now I'm using the camera that's built into my MacBook Air M3. And one of the beauties of getting stuff from Amazon was they have, such a liberal return policy. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, they take things back. Sometimes if you buy it from a third party where it's fulfilled by Amazon, but it's sent by, fulfilled, or it's the seller is Joe from CyMac, you might have different return policies. Generally, if you stay with sold by Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon, you have no problems. So
Right.
in both of these cases, the AirPods Pro were unopened. The camera was tested out. I returned both on separate days. One was actually a gift, and we had the people who were the recipients of the AirPods Pro. They already had them. They didn't need them, so they sent them back. And initially, I tried to get a label generated because that's typically the way I deal with it. And I know that you and I talked about that. You would have a slightly different way where you get the QR code and you bring it to your shipping location, and they just scan the code on your phone and they put it in a box and label it up and package it and send it off to Amazon. In this particular case, with both electronics, I could not get a label generated. The only way I could send it back to them was with a call tag. And so this immediately struck a nerve with me because this is not the way it's been, at least
Right.
for me in the greater Connecticut area. So I'm thinking like, okay, there's a lot of fraud going on. Maybe, they need to legitimize the purchase and the return so that, I didn't hack into your account and I'm sending it to my house. And then if,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
Um, so we had to do call tags. And then when I returned them, and one was returned as early as yesterday,
Mhm.
um, the date for a credit was not even 5 to 7 days. They're taking like almost like a 15-day window, including the weekend, to credit back my credit card from stuff sold by Amazon. I've never been contacted by them like, hey, you're buying too much stuff and you're returning too much stuff. I'm in a special watch category or something like
Sure.
that. So I think something has very fundamentally changed with the way Amazon is dealing with electronics and people committing fraud. So this is just like maybe a PSA. So
Mm.
just buyer beware. They're not telling me I can't return it. They're not adding a surcharge, at least from what I know. But there's large windows where they've received it, they've got your money, you don't have your credit back.
Right. Yeah, they've that is a really important thing to be aware of. That right, they still
Mm-hmm.
have your money, and it definitely seems like they are waiting to check the return.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, based on the window. Whereas I've had some small, random little like a iPhone mount and things that I've tried where I returned it, and I've opted for the like credit to my Amazon account,
Mm-hmm.
just knowing like obviously I'm going to spend money at Amazon at some point very soon probably,
Mm-hmm.
and just doing it that way. And that's been like almost instantaneous. I
Yep.
forget if
Same
it's
with
like
us.
when you
Mm-hmm.
scan the like, and I'll also use the QR code method. So I know you said you like to use the label method, and then you can just drop it off, which is also very nice. Just like it's already boxed up, you put it in the mailing. Like the UPS drop box or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll use the QR code, and I think it's like when they scan that code is what when I get my credit, pretty much. But those were much smaller items, so you might be onto something with the electronics specifically there. That's what they're checking on more
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
carefully. So
So anyway, I mean, it's just adds a level of administration overhead because
yeah,
now I've got created an Apple Note where I'm like, tracking these because
yeah,
it's like in both cases it's like $200. So
yep.
$200 here, $200 there. I want to make sure I get the credit.
That you get
I'm
it. Yeah,
sure, yeah.
exactly.
If I chase
Yep.
them down, they're like, oh, we're sorry to credit you after you reach that return credit
Yes.
window, but I don't want to do that. I just want to get my credit back and move on.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. No, it's a good PSA. I've got another PSA actually about Adigy. I don't think I've shared this yet on the podcast that Live Desktop uses screen sharing.
Hmm.
I use it all day long. It's fantastic, and I even do migrations using this method. So I connect using Live Desktop to the brand new Mac that's been enrolled in Adigy. I connect to the source Mac as well that's also enrolled in Adigy, and I handle the migration. I oversee it for the client. It's been working great for years for me. And now under Sequoia, it's a little bit different. So when you launch Migration Assistant and you authenticate, what I think is happening is that it's like relaunching Migration Assistant under a special setup user
Hmm.
account. This is all, Apple's method.
You
And so
actually
when
did mention this on another show. Sorry.
did I really? I mentioned in the Adigy channels, but you sure I mentioned on the
Mm-mm.
show? All right, I'm
Yeah,
deleting it
because
right
I,
from my
I didn't
notes
see
then.
it in the channel. Yeah.
Okay, crap. I gotta keep my notes more up to date. I can't believe I already mentioned that. All right, I'll delete that then. Can you
Well, why
edit
don't
this
you?
out?
Yeah, I
Yeah, go
can,
ahead.
but finish it out for anybody who's watching the
All
YouTube
right. All right.
broadcast.
So when Migration Assistant relaunches or whatever's happening where it's running under a special setup user account,
Hmm.
Live Desktop, screen sharing goes back to the login window showing the list of users, and it shows the setup user there logged in. So you think, oh, I'll just click the setup user. That doesn't work because you don't know the password because it's apparently
Hmm.
just this Apple internal thing. So you just close the screen sharing window, reconnect using Adigy Live Desktop, now re-authenticate with the same user and just opt to share the screen of the logged in user, which is the setup user. Now you can see that session that is showing that Migration Assistant is running under this other user account. So minor change. At first it just tripped me up, but in case anybody's using that process, it does seem to work reliably and normally from that point. The reason I do it this way, as I've shared this recipe on the show before, is that I found that it's much better out of the box to complete the setup assistant by creating a temporary user account, get to the desktop, and then update the system, and then run Migration Assistant from the utilities folder on the
Hmm.
system. It just works
Right.
more reliably. I've almost never had a problem doing it that way. Sometimes coming from a very old system, migrating to the new system, like it'll either, never finish spinning on one of the little like sections, whether it's applications or whatever, or it'll progress past that and start migrating, and then it'll basically eventually hang, where it's got like 100,100 files to go. Like that was the number that I saw
Yeah.
last time, and I'm like, that's
Nice.
a pretty perfect number, like 100,100 files. Like maybe that's random, but maybe it's also just like some technical glitch, I don't know, bug or whatever. But it never progressed past that, and it's like keeps estimating more and more time. Meanwhile, the old system is like estimating a different amount of time. So I'm like, is it actually still going? So I
Hmm.
let it go in that case for maybe like another hour or two, and I just check back in later. Didn't make any progress. You click back, you quit or actually you just go back to the screen where you started the migration and restart it from there.
Sure.
And it worked. So there's no change, we didn't even reboot, but it just worked. So it just depends on usually the age of the source machine, but otherwise this is a pretty repeatable process just to make sure the new one is up to date and you run it from the utilities folder.
Nice. Just something came to mind when you talked about onboarding a new machine. And because you're exclusively remote, this is actually a unique question only to you. So
Mm-hmm.
you have a client who gets an iPhone, a new iPhone. Do you ever have them buy the $4 Lightning to, in most cases, the old phone was Lightning to
Oh,
USB-C cable and not do it over the air?
it's a great question. So when I migrated to my new phone,
Hmm.
from my 15 Pro Max, which was also USB-C, I used
Hmm.
USB-C to USB-C for the first time, thinking, oh, I heard the guys on Accidental Tech podcast talking about transferring over the wire, and I thought, oh, let me give that a try. But I made the mistake of using the cable they include, or I forget even what it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't included with my phone. It was
Oh,
just
it
a
wasn't
standard USB-C. So it's
it
a
wasn't a
USB
data
2.
cable. Mm.
Yeah, it was. So therefore, it was like only USB 2, and that took
Nice.
a long time.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there's like to charge the phone, you've got to use MagSafe, and then it wasn't keeping up with it was like getting down to the point where I'm like, I don't know, I might have like 2% left on my battery when this finishes
Ah,
if my calculations are right. So it's very, but I don't bother doing all of that with clients, because I find the direct transfer or restoring from iCloud backup tends to work wirelessly. I
mhm,
like the restore from iCloud backup better because it lets you get through the initial setup with them, like in kind of one go. And then the restore can happen in the background where their data
mhm,
is actually downloading behind the scenes versus like tying up both phones until the process is complete, when you're doing the direct transfer method where you just got
mhm.
to wait for that to finish. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think it cuts both ways. I think there's merits to both. I think if the person doesn't have very much data on their
yeah,
phone, then it doesn't matter. But if you're talking about somebody who's got lots of photographs, you actually can get a little bump. I understand, it's going to pull it down from iCloud anyway. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's six or one half dozen of the other. I mean, with my wife's that I just transferred to the iPhone 16, we did use the Lightning to USB C cable. And I would imagine USB C to USB C would even be faster
right.
with the proper data
With the
cable.
proper cable. Yeah, not what I did.
Right, right. But you think that if you do it with the cable, that once the phone is done, all the apps would be there. But that's not the case. Even though it's transferred all the data,
Right.
the apps still are pulling down the latest version from the store. So you're going
Yeah.
to still see, your home screen, and there's going to be all these darkened apps on the front
Yeah.
portion of it, and you first look and you go like, well, what's this? I use the cable, everything should be here. But no, that's just not the way the migration works.
Right.
It always wants to make sure that it's got the latest app store version to put
Right.
on the phone, and that's
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Speaking of apps though, in that process, I always find that part a little bit annoying where I have to like manually open all my apps, so you get the new phone, you get it all transferred, everything's great and ready to go. But until you actually go in and open most of your apps, you won't see even notifications from those apps. Like many of them, have to be signed in again. So you're not going to actually get push notifications until you go and sign into that app and it has been opened. So that's kind of
Hmm.
part of the process. I mean, for me at least, like I found that I was still looking at my old phone, seeing there's notifications happening there, like Unify or I don't know,
Sure.
any number of other things that are not happening on my new phone until I go in the new phone and say, oh, it's asking me to sign in again or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's interesting. I wonder if there could be a case made, and too bad Mr. Apple isn't here. If you were using the wire, if that wouldn't be the case. I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, I did the wire. I did use, I mean, maybe if I use the right wire, the USB-C to USB-C, with data transfer, like USB 3 speeds or whatever, versus I think in your case, the Lightning to USB-C, I think Lightning was only ever USB 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not
Also?
going to be that fast, but I'm thinking
Right.
what you did, was it actually ever doing it with the cable because you had just a USB charging cable? It was
I'm,
maybe doing it
no, I'm
over the
pretty sure.
air
I mean, the process, I was wondering
or
that too
peer
at
to
one
peer.
point.
I'm saying over
Yeah.
the air, but I mean peer to peer.
Peer to peer. I think it
Mm.
actually would have been faster to go peer to peer than to use this USB
Mm.
2.0 cable. Because effectively, if it's not a data cable, it's USB 2.
That's a
I'm
good
pretty
point too.
sure is what it
Yeah.
is. So USB 2 is pretty slow, and so I think it was using the cable, and I think it was just really slow. But yeah, I mean, I just would think that process could be a little bit. I don't know. I mean, maybe Apple just should recommend, like, now why don't you go in and open your apps? I guess they just figure people will go into their phone and start opening all the apps they use on a regular basis and passively kind of like solve that issue. But it's like it should be part of our process to deliberately go in and open the apps and make sure they're actually signed in. I mean, if you're sitting there with a client, of course, but if
Yeah,
you're remote, it's a little harder.
that's really interesting. And it's not an edge case thing that you're bringing up. It's a legitimate question that I'm not sure we know the exact answer to, because I'm thinking that that can't be the default behavior. I know it happened to you, and I'm not disputing that
Yeah.
it did, but I wonder if there's any other way that you can do this and avoid that. Like,
I was wondering that too, because I actually didn't think that that was the case across the board in the
that's
past
crazy.
either.
Yeah.
Right. And there are certain apps where that's not the case, like where and I'm not sure about the notification thing, but certain apps don't require you to log back in because they're saving a token on the device that basically
Right.
confirms, that, and it's like, it's interesting to me, like Dropbox really doesn't care. Dropbox stayed signed in. Dropbox is
Yeah.
like,
Nice.
you've been transferring this token from like, I don't know how many phones ago. Like, we've never asked you to sign in. I hope you're still the right person. We're just making a big leap of faith here. Like, maybe I want them. I mean, really, I should go into my Dropbox account and review all my devices and say, this is not me, or this hasn't signed in 2 years. I'll remove it. But they're perfectly happy to keep you signed in. Authy is perfectly happy to keep me, with my 2FA code. So now I've got, two-factor codes happening on both the old and the new phone. It's not the something I have is now like two different things that I have, right?
Hmm.
That's interesting to me that they don't make you do a process of backing up and restoring. I'm glad they don't, because I think it would trip more people up. Whereas Microsoft Authenticator requires you to do some kind of process, and I actually
Hmm.
forget what it is for like my client accounts that I'm managing, which
Hmm.
I still
And
have to deal with.
that's interesting too, that you talk about Authy. So I exclusively use Authenticator or 1Password
Hmm.
for the two-factor. Why do you still have a relationship with Authy? I mean, I know
I
they're
mean,
third party, and you could say like, "Oh, I hate Microsoft," or kind of that sort of thing. But
no, no,
I know you're not a Microsoft hater, Joe. And
I'm
don't ask
not,
me why I have a screwdriver in my hand, but I do. And so I can't explain that. Maybe it's
yeah.
for my next job, but
When every problem looks like a screw,
I
every
gesticulate with
solution
the
looks like a
screwdriver all the
screwdriver. Yeah, I don't
time.
know, but but so with Authy, I was using them before 1Password ever,
Yeah, as was I.
offered
Yeah,
2FA. Yeah. So
yeah.
I have a few still in there. I haven't bothered switching them over.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
Change your dance partner. That's what I'm saying.
I think I'm ready to do that at this point. But yeah, like so Microsoft Authenticator, when you get a new phone, you have to take action on each account.
Mm,
So, and for me, it says like on one of my clients says, action required, scan the QR code provided by your organization to finish recovering this account.
mm.
I'm like, my
What?
organization hasn't provided anything. I'm the
Yeah,
organization. Like what does that mean? So
yeah,
I actually don't know the process for doing that. And
yeah.
I'm surprised that I don't hear from more
I don't
clients
either.
who,
Yeah, right.
so yeah,
Yeah,
it'll happen at some point.
yeah. I'm
But
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I've got one more little gripe type thing, or not gripe, but so
Peeve, a peeve,
yeah, maybe
maybe
a peeve, sure.
from the old
So
days.
yeah, exactly. We haven't done peeves in a while.
No, we
So
haven't.
I listen. I don't listen. I read John Gruber like almost every day. DaringFireball.net. It's great site for the new consultants out there who haven't discovered it yet. A lot of great Apple news and kind of tangentially related things about the industry and beyond. One of the things he said recently was, I really dislike the practice of replacing passwords with email, quote, magic links. Autofilling a password from my keychain happens instantly. Getting a magic link can take minutes sometimes, and even in the fastest case, it's nowhere near instantaneous. It's never usually minutes for me. It's like maybe a minute, maybe half a minute, something like that at worst. It's usually just 10 seconds or whatever, to get an email. But to his point, I see where he's coming from. So he says replacing something very fast, password autofill, with something slower is just a terrible idea. I agree with that. For people who actually prefer email magic links, it's fine as an option, but it shouldn't be the default, and it certainly shouldn't be the only way to sign into an account. So I agree with everything he's saying there. I also dislike that practice where they say, oh, we're passwordless. Like, we've solved all your problems. We're just going to email you a link. The other reason I dislike that is because using a magic link doesn't usually invoke your password manager. So let's say you sign up for a company that does this practice of like, we're going to send you a link. Every time you want to sign in, you just put in your email and then we send you the link.
Mm-hmm.
Since there's no field for password, they never ask for a password, your password manager is not invoked, and therefore it's not saving even the email address associated with this service. I've got more than one email address. So sometimes I'm not sure if I signed up under, like in the case of our
Mm-hmm.
show, is it my personal, is it my company email? Is it the info address for Command Control Power? Is it one of our other email addresses for different features, right? I have to remember, just try different ones. Or even internally, I've got several personal accounts. Like, when did I sign up? Was it 3 years ago? I might have used my Gmail. Now I might have used my me.com address, or my new, custom email address, or whatever. I have to remember that now or manually put it in. So to me, that's just another little edge case where, you don't want to train, like, you want the industry to be training people to use the built-in password managers, which now are also moving toward passkeys, which are, I think, good for people in general, but also have some little asterisk next to them. But you want to train people to use those. You don't want to, put them through this alternative process that doesn't invoke the password manager. So that's my
Mm-hmm.
issue with that. I thought he had some good thoughts on that, and that's my little 2 cents.
So this is interesting. So I've never heard the phrase magic link, for starters. And my question is it developed by the same people who came up with the magic 8 ball? That's my first
Probably, yeah.
question. But
It's a good question, yeah.
and then I got slightly distracted because Ashley walked by the
I
screen,
know.
and
I think
then
there was a ghost
I
behind me. It's
I
almost
actually I
Halloween,
actually
so
stopped
yeah.
listening to you. But what web services are doing this right now? Because I've seen,
StreamYard. We use StreamYard for broadcasting the show. StreamYard does this.
and we get the
Um,
magic password, the magic
Yeah, you get a
now
magic link. So it's
link.
basically like, clients are used to this because I forgot my password, right? Okay, fine, just put in your email address and then we'll send you a link, and then now you're
Mm-hmm.
signed in. Well, now you're at the point where you can choose a new password. Basically, this just takes that kind of workflow and it makes it the default. It's like, put in your email address, we'll send you a link. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah. No, I realized.
I can manage
Yeah.
passwords. I don't need a magic link. I have a
Yeah.
magic password autofill feature,
That's really, yeah, that's really fuzzy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And strikes me as, in 2024, not very secure.
Right. No, I
Yeah,
mean
susceptible to a man-in-the-middle attack very easily through email.
exactly,
Mm.
exactly. So not a
The-
good practice. Yeah.
how do you explain to clients passkeys? Like,
It's
the
great. Yeah.
Nana version of that. Like they're asking me if I want to use I'm logging to Google, but they're asking me if I want to use passkeys. What's that?
I mean, depending on the client's level of sophistication, I'm
Let's
like for the
let's
Nana
pretend they're
client,
unsophisticated,
yeah,
like
I would
myself.
say, I would probably say, I recommend doing that. Like
Okay.
I wouldn't explain what it is or why or whatever, but I would say like if they offer a passkey, then I recommend, clicking OK or whatever it is, click continue.
Hmm.
Um, so let me take a step back and explain it to the more sophisticated client or like, go ahead.
Well, yeah, and what brings up the question, and I want to hear your answer, is the fact that I might be using already one password, and
Yeah.
so that's working fine for me, and I'm getting this annoying other pop up asking me about using the passkey.
Yeah.
What should I be doing here?
Well, so then the answer is like sort of like what I tell them when they say, I've I show them iCloud keychain and then they say I've got one password. Should I? Oh, well, it's kind of a mess. I mean, you kind
Hmm.
of like if you've got it in one and it autofills from there, then the other one's going to ask, do you want to save this password? I would say yes. Why not? Like, why not have it in both? I don't know.
Hmm.
It's a normally I would recommend against like a redundancy of like information, that needs to like be dealt with later. Like if I thought this was going to create a big pile that somebody's going to need to manually like deduplicate or something, I probably would discourage this. But because you know, it's very relatively simple data, like it's an email and a password. It probably
Hmm.
will deduplicate automatically if you ever say to iCloud Keychain, yes, please import from one password or whatever. If you want to consolidate into one place, I think they
Hmm.
could handle the duplication, I assume. And if you have two different passwords for the same account, you just figure out which one works and you delete the other one. Like it's not a big problem. So I just keep it simple and I say, if you've got it in one and you let it fill in from there, let it save in the other one it asks. Fine. Same question comes up with passkeys because, like you said, they might say, "I've got one password. I've already got the autofill. Like it says, do you want to save a passkey? Should I do that? Sure, why not? Because it's going to make it easier for them to log in later. I think the only caveat there is that they do need to be using a password manager. Like there's no way to like look up what the pass key, quote unquote, is on one device and then utilize it on the other device. It needs to sync. Like there needs to be a backing system of syncing passkeys to make them useful on more than one device. So they have to be
Hmm.
using iCloud Keychain to be able to use a passkey. Um, the edge case they might get into is they might have one password installed on their Mac, but not on their phone. And one password might ask, do you want to save a passkey for Amazon or whatever? And if they say yes, use a passkey with Amazon, and that's in the scope of one password on their Mac, they
Hmm.
may not be able to log in using the passkey on their iPhone. I think they can still use the password though. I don't think passkeys like kind of supersede passwords, right? So like you can still log in with a password. You just also have a passkey. Um, so it's still kind of like an evolving system essentially. And again, like both iCloud Keychain and One Password can like save a passkey, and if you have both implemented, like they'll both it'll ask you which one do you want to save it in or whatever.
Hmm.
So that's still evolving, but the benefit of passkeys, again, for the sophisticated user, is that there's no password that can get you into trouble. Like there's no ability for you to say, let me look up my passkey and like type it in this, hacker version of the website that's a phishing attempt. There's no way to like provide a passkey to the wrong server essentially because it's all
Yeah.
automatic.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
to me, that's already the benefit of a password manager, because if you have a password manager, then what I explain again to the slightly more sophisticated clients is that one of the benefits of the password manager is that it's going to fill in the password for you. And it's only going to fill in the password for you on the correct website. It's not going to
Hmm.
be fooled like a human would be fooled to, type in their Bank of America password to, you know, ba- Bank of America
Hmm.
misspelled or
Hmm.
whatever, right? So it's going to know the difference. So that's the same benefit that you get with passkeys, but you already have that benefit if you're using a password manager. So it
Yeah,
basically
that's
takes the ability away from the person to get themselves into trouble.
yeah. I mean, that's a really good point that about a password manager will only autofill on the correct website. The other thing, and I'm sure you've experienced this. I've got a user I could think of top of mind. She's not using one password; she's using Dashlane, and
Mhm.
we've had situations where we're in Dashlane, the password's wrong. We're in the passwords app for Apple, and that one's wrong. And now we're looking in the Google Chrome password
Yeah.
manager, and that's the right one. And then you have to
Yeah.
go in there and fix the other ones. And
Yeah.
they kind of understand what's going on, but at the same time, they're like, "Well, how come it's putting in the wrong password?" And it's like, "Well, this is a completely different system, and it put it not potentially, it is a hot mess for
Yeah.
some of my clients. It's a big hot
Yeah.
mess because you're only there for a little bit, like you're doing a remote session, or you're only there for a short period of time if you're physically on site, and you can't say to them, look, let me spend a couple hours with your computer and let me just go through everything in the
Yeah.
Google Chrome password manager app, and let me look at the Apple pass, because it would take time to
Yeah.
do this
Right.
and put them back on the right track. So you leave and you just hope for the best till the next time this comes up and you're on site and you can't log into the website and you
Yep.
don't know why, and then you start going to all these password vaults to find the right one.
Completely. Yeah, I've been there. And it's, again, like you said, it's a hope for the best kind of situation because, that there's no amount of time that they're willing to pay for, that you're willing to
Mhm.
spend, that they actually, I mean, even if they were able to pay and spend the time and money, that would result in them fully understanding all the nuances of all this stuff,
Mhm.
even just with passwords, let alone everything else in the computer that could trip them up. So,
Right.
yeah, some of it is a hope for the best. I mean, I will say you can import from Chrome into into Safari, into the password manager essentially, right? So you can go file, import from Google Chrome, and you can select, passwords to import. So that's, you could do that. It doesn't mean that, it's certainly not going to like figure out which is the right password. So you're going to bring in
Mhm.
a bunch of bad data and the good data, and they're still going to be stuck with like,
Yeah.
well, if that one doesn't work, try the other one. I have situations, my own systems, right? I go to log in. It's like almost every time I go to, I forget, there's certain sites that I use all the time. Repair Shopper for my
Mhm.
stuff, Watchman Monitoring, um, and my bank. Those three at various times have persistently recommended, like, I once saved, one guy who worked for me, like their login for Repair Shopper so I could go in and fix something for them or whatever. It's like presenting that one every time as the
Yeah.
top result. And I'm
Yep.
like, I mean, I'll just probably delete it at some point and save myself the trouble. But every time it comes up, I'm like, can you not just learn that I always
Yeah.
select a different one? Like, why
Right.
are you every time telling me the last one I would ever choose, let alone for my bank or for like, it's like it's gonna I don't know. It's just so frustrating. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't even have an explanation in for myself, let alone if a client asks me that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like every time I write an email to Mary, and
Yeah.
Apple Mail writes an email to Mari, and
Yeah.
Mari has been removed from all my
Right.
contacts. I curse the day I ever did business with Mari
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
completely effed up my life.
Right, right.
Because
Oh
I
yeah.
can never write to Mary. I'm always writing to Mari, and
Oh
I have
my
to go
God.
in and autocorrect.
It's almost, I mean, we've joked 100 times in the show, but like you joked recently about the pre-intelligent, like the pre-Apple intelligent, and how like it's not intelligent, it's like pre-intelligent. Like,
No, that's
I
it.
hope,
Instead of
yeah,
AI, it's Apple imbecile, not
Apple
Apple
imbecile.
intelligent.
That, there you
Yeah.
go, exactly. Like, I mean, I was writing you back, like I think I used Siri, just last week, and I'm writing, like, hey Jerry, blah 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 blah, and it's like, Siri sees your name in the
Mhm.
thread,
Oh yeah.
like, and I say it out loud, and like the more common spelling is with a J, right? And I
Yeah.
and it,
Yeah.
it gets it right the first time, and it's all transcribing everything I'm saying, and it's and then it changes the
Yeah.
Jerry with the J to the Jerry with the G.
I've seen
Like,
this.
like,
Yeah.
no, just quit while you're ahead. Why are you changing it? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? And I mean, it's just how this kind of stuff happens all the time. I sometimes as I'm typing, I type instead of I'm a bad typist, I think. Instead of typing THE for the word the, which is the number one most common word in the English language, I sometimes hit RHE, okay, and then a space. And my Mac will very helpfully fill in the entire phrase rheumatoid arthritis. Okay. So it's just like I'm like writing an email and I'm like, click the button, blah blah blah. And it's like click rheumatoid arthritis button. And
Oh wow.
I'm like, just like, has anyone ever benefited from that suggestion? Like, oh man, it's just
That's
like
not
it's
one of your
almost
saved abbreviations, Joe?
no.
Rheumatoid
It's
arthritis?
like almost deliberately bad. It's like somebody at Apple is like trolling us. Like, how long will
Yeah.
you suffer the Apple imbecile, pre AI version of this stuff? So I'm just hoping this is better with the Apple
Well,
Intelligence.
I go
But
through the same thing. I have a client who's the Jerry, with the dog Jack, the Mastiff, who almost took off my arm.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah.
And Jack's dead now, thank goodness.
Oh no.
Yeah, for years. But
Okay.
she's Jerry with a G, and I'll write to
Hmm.
her, and it'll be Jerry with a J, and then
Right,
and then it's going back and forth, and it just can't get it right.
right.
But and how about it, this one's gone away, but you and I both agreed on this. Like there was several years ago where if you wrote the word FOR, it
Yeah.
would always it would always change to fur, like a fir tree,
Oh, sure. Yeah,
FIR.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
right.
what
Right.
is fur?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not,
Right.
I mean, FUR, all right, I'll give you that. Maybe
Yeah,
I'll
but
give you a little
for
extra.
FIR is like the
It's like,
least likely thing you meant to type. Yeah.
unless you're a
No.
woodsman, right?
Yeah.
And then it
Oh, I
would
mean, the
be,
one I've screenshotted this one before where it will be Thanksgiving Day, right? And I'll be typing a text and I'll be like, happy space, and then it's like suggesting Father's Day. Like what? I'm like, no, try again. Like, I'm in the US. It's a
wow,
corporate holiday. It's like, oh man, it's just
Apple imbecile.
yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
so bad. And I don't know about you, but I'm finding the typing is I'm struggling to type on this. I don't know if it's because I switched from the iPhone Pro Max to the Pro and the screen is slightly different, slightly smaller, but I'm just struggling, again, like
Mm.
I think if you could go back, if I could erase myself typing on the very first iPhone versus now, even with all the autofill, correction, suggestions, like auto completion, I think I'd be faster on the first iPhone.
Hmm.
There's a chance that I'd be faster. It's so I don't know if this is really helping anybody, some of this
Mm.
stuff.
Probably
It
not.
could just be me. I don't know. I've been an iPhone user since day one. Maybe that's less of the common case. Like maybe somebody getting an iPhone today from scratch is just doing great with typing. I don't know, but
Maybe, in the cobwebs of our Apple ID, all this data is hidden somewhere, and that's what it's drawing upon. Because I like the Mari thing. I
yeah.
can't for the like. There was this woman named Mari Prentice, and how
She's
many
not in
other
your contacts. You don't have her in any of your
No, I blew
contacts
her out like
databases.
two
Yeah.
years ago when this started
Yeah.
to happen. I'm thinking, okay, I know. Or previous recipients, like I know. I'm just going to
Right.
remove I mean, she was like, I did scorched earth on Mari Prentice. I
Right.
can't shake her from Apple
Wow.
Intelligence.
I mean, again, and you'd think like, wouldn't the intelligent part be like, what's the most common? Like, if somebody says Mary, like it's probably Mary. Like
How about because
90%
Mary's
of
in
the
the
time.
email that I'm responding to?
Well, they even
Maybe.
better, right? But see, that's the thing that Apple doesn't know. You said like maybe it's because they have it in some database of like this dossier on you about
Mhm,
everybody but I think that actually the problem is like they don't have a lot of this stuff like
mhm,
because of privacy and all that, and there's ways
mhm.
of doing whatever differential privacy. I don't know how they're solving it with some of the new Apple Intelligence features, but it's supposed to know. I mean, you'd think the very first thing it should know is who I'm writing to in my text message thread, and there's two people, and it's like if I say Jerry, I probably mean the same spelling that's in the thread I'm talking, I'm
Mhm,
typing in.
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
So yeah, but I think that Apple is like, again, blinders. Like, we don't want to know this stuff because we're all about your privacy, and it's this
But where
badge of
is
honor. Yeah,
yeah, but where is Mari coming from? Where is
yeah, it's
Jerry
got
with
to
a
be.
G
Well, yeah,
coming
that's
from, which is
that's an
less
even better
common?
question, right? That it's almost like, again, deliberately bad. Like, yeah, where is it getting? Because I have like one relatively recent contact, Jerry with the G. Like, I don't even know where, it
Yeah.
was doing that before I knew this person. Like, I don't think there's anybody in my contacts, Jerry with the G, and the Mary with an I or whatever is like, where would you go? I don't know where you would look for that besides just the contacts app. You know,
Yeah,
it's
it's
weird.
all this BS is on device is what it is.
Yeah,
So,
I know. I guess I don't know if I would make that trade-off, be a little bit less privacy conscious, Apple,
yeah.
and be a little smarter, like if you need to. I mean, I don't want you to go all full Google on me, like where,
Mhm.
you just know everything. You know more than I do about myself. Like, you've got every email, every thought I've ever had is probably in Google, but um and they really like they do a lot with it. I think that they're
Right.
better at like knowing what you mean, because it's like they know about you.
Well, all my chat GPT, I mean, I'm signed into the free account, but that's what I'm using. And I just turned it on the beta, the 18.2 that I just downloaded today.
Hmm.
And a lot of my business correspondence, it's writing my emails for me, after
Wow.
I kind of, so I mean, who cares, I mean,
What do you mean, who cares? Like, you're with the privacy wise, it's like
yeah, I mean, it's
you're
not
fine with it?
super sensitive. Yeah, I'm fine
Sure.
with it. It's not super sensitive data. I mean, like, what are you going to take
Right.
from me? I'm not like, we don't put sensitive stuff in emails anyway.
Right.
Like, how
Well, and
about restarting your machine?
yeah.
Like that's would be in my email,
Yeah,
or
that's the
just
most sensitive topic.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not going to
exactly.
be putting passwords or
Right.
sensitive information about minor
Yeah.
children or anything like that in an email
Right.
typically.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like the concern with privacy is also like storing the data, collecting the data. Like, I
Hmm.
don't care if Apple like briefly knows that I have a friend named Jerry with the J, or whatever, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like that, it's like it can know it just in the time it takes to like put it in the put it in the transcription. They don't need to store that. As long as they're not storing that data long term, then it seems like there could be a balance in there where they know the data, they have access to the information, they just don't store it. That's all I ask, really.
Yeah, maybe some sort of a like in 24 to 48 hours that
Yeah,
that data disappears from our servers or something like that.
right. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to Apple Intelligence. I think I will be a great customer of, some of those features, like being able to utilize ChatGPT to rewrite some of these emails like you're describing. I will use it more because it's built in than having to, copy the text and then ask the question to rewrite it or whatever, and then copy and paste
Hmm.
back again. Like, I think it would just be I will. It'll be more accessible to me, so I'll use it more. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't mind that they're kind of rolling it out slowly over time, piece by
Hmm.
piece. I think it's a little funny from the marketing side because people are kind of like, rolling their eyes, like all these things are, promoting Apple Intelligence, and yet, it's not even there yet. But that's fine. Do it carefully, do it safely, make it work well from the beginning, and I'll be happier than if they just like, yeah, put it in beta on point oh, whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah,
A lot of good things to think about here.
yeah.
Who knew?
Who knew? Not Siri. Siri didn't know much of anything and still
That's right.
doesn't. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Siri knows on under Apple Intelligence. So looking forward to hearing more from you on that in the meantime, and then hearing about it from Apple once it goes live. But yeah, this has been a good conversation, just the two of us, and wish you all the best, Jerry, for good turnout from these client engagements, and like more I hope you get more uptake with things. I know you tried the marketing, I know you tried um, rattling some cages, and we just talked to Tim Nyberg about the kind of client engagement and effective techniques for getting clients to kind of respond. For me, it's just a matter of the amount of contacts, there's just
Hmm.
putting it out there constantly. You get 10% back maybe, but I hope that picks up for you, because I know it's been a little bit of a struggle with some of those this time of year. We're on the cusp of the election, and I've been hearing from a lot of different people like, well,
There
throwing
you
their
there
hands
you
up.
go. There you go, dating the show again, Joe.
Well, I had to, but it's hopefully by the time it airs, we'll have a new president. But in the meantime, I think there's a lot of people out there just throwing their hands up and saying like, it's an election year. I don't know what's going on, and
Hmm.
clients are saying the same thing, like talk to me in a month, kind of thing. So, I don't know. I'm just sending you good wishes as we close out the show
I
for
appreciate
some
that,
more
Joe.
uptake from our sometimes very passive clients. So.
Right. I got to afford to pay the mortgage on all this that you see behind me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful. I love the view. You must have just renovated your office. I like
Yeah.
that the
Spiral
underlit
staircase, I think it's,
staircase there.
yeah. Hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah, yeah. So you added a whole floor because you were recording from the top floor previously. Now it looks like you've added another floor on top of that.
We've added a whole new wing to the castle.
Amazing. So you must be doing
Mhm.
something right. You must be getting some calls back from your clients. Good stuff. All right. Well, I'll talk to you in a week. And thanks everybody for listening to another episode of Command Control Power.